stand against the Lord? No one can, no one will. Who will stand against our King? No one can, no one will. Oh.
Hello, I am Mrs. Jones, and I am so happy to read to you today. The one book that I will read, Don't Feed the Monster, was written by a member of Friendship. His name is Robert Shields, and now he and his wife have moved to California. I want you to meet Robert, Brian, and Jasmine. They're brother and sister. Hurry up and move out of the way. Leave me alone. Don't look at me. Beep, beep, beep. The alarm sounded. And as usual, Brian, Jasmine, and Robert woke up in a bad mood. And just like every other morning, they began to argue. Little did they know, today they were creating a monster. Now they're in the kitchen. You made a big mess. Now clean it up. Quit spitting when you talk. You're not my boss. The incessant quarreling followed them to the breakfast table. It just didn't seem like the three of them could ever get along. The moment was growing and growing more. Don't blame me. It's not my fault. You're last, so you're the stinky, rotten egg. Stop stepping on my jacket. Mom and Dad sent Brian, Jasmine, and Robert outside to play, hoping it would help stop the constant arguing. So the three cubs grabbed their jackets and headed for the door. The three of them finally agreed on something. They all wanted to play tag. I get to pick this time. I'm always it first. That's not fair. That's a lie. Stop whining. They spat about who would be first. The more they bickered, the more the monster would grow, and now the monster had reached an enormous size. And listening to Brian, Jasmine, and Robert squabble with 10 minutes, Dad called a family meeting. Cubs, come inside for an important family meeting. So the cubs reluctantly came inside for the meeting. They all hated family meetings because they knew that something was going to change for the better. The cubs did not want to change. Brian, Jasmine, and Robert sat next to each other on the sofa while Dad and Mom stood facing them. Dad called the family meeting to order. Cubs, Mom and I are unhappy with all the arguing you've been doing. It doesn't accomplish anything good. But how? Your bickering has created a monster. Every time you fuss, you are feeding the monster. Brian, Jasmine, and Robert, don't feed the monster. Look how big he's grown. Right away, they all noticed the monster in the room. Only you can make the monster disappear, Dad explained. It is quite simple. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Do the opposite of arguing. Use kind words. Use your manners. Compliment each other. And most importantly, show love toward one another. Mom now nodded and smiled in agreement with Dad, and Brian, Jasmine, and Robert nodded and smiled too. You're so fast. I can be it this time. Let's play, guys. Dad ended the meeting and sent the cubs back outside to play. Brian, Jasmine, and Robert laughed and played until their hearts were content. They even had a peaceful picnic lunch in their front yard and continued to play some more. The monster began to shrink. "Let me help you. You can go in front of me." "Thank you." Later, Mom called the cubs in for supper. They hung up their jackets nicely and neatly and washed their hands. Gradually, the monster was getting smaller and smaller. "You're a good runner. Could someone pass the salt?" Brian and I raced bikes. Everyone sat around the supper table laughing and discussing the fun events of the day and putting their good manners to use. By now, the monster was so small that it went unnoticed to almost non-existent. "Oh, excuse me, I'll move over." "No, thank you. Do you need me to pass the floss?" Mom directed the cubs to take their baths, brush their teeth, and get going for bed. They did so without grumbling. At this point, the monster was even the size of a mouse. "Good night, guys." "Thank you, Dad." "I love you." After Brian, Robert, and Jasmine were in bed, Dad read them a bedtime story about the importance of family. He tucked them in and said, "Good night," and everyone was in a good mood. And then all of a sudden, poof, the monster disappeared. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.